That shouldn't lead the viewer to think that all that money is going to the administrators of programs. A lot of what you're talking about goes to non-poor recipients. For example, Social Security as a program pays roughly half of its benefits to people who otherwise would not be poor. Unemployment insurance pays about 2/3 of its benefits or so to non-poor persons. And those are, in some definitions, welfare or anti-poverty programs. And that's how statisticians come up with this horrendous-sounding discrepancy between the total amount of money spent and the total cash benefits that go to the poor.
Well, I think it's a perfectly valid point, though, because supposedly we were not setting up unemployment benefits and Social Security in order to keep the affluent affluent.
Well, this goes back to this big philosophy debate we might have. I think it's easy to oversimplify things and say that all of these programs, including the public schools, are there to be of help to the poor and the poor only.
Yeah, but
let me mention that the negative income tax has some of its impetus in that it would be a way of confining benefit payments to people who are income poor.
Yes.
And it would cut out benefits for an awful lot of people who now have expectations that they're going to get them, not in the form of public assistance, but in the form of social insurance, as we use the
Or an argument could be made for not disappointing the expectations on which people have built their lives for one generation, but not of continuing for eternity in order to avoid one generation of transition.
What are the other hurdles to it getting underway? Now, you said, I don't know how seriously, the biggest, and almost the only hurdle is the welfare bureaucracy.
No, they're the biggest immediate group of lobbyists that will lobby against it.
Yeah.
The biggest hurdle to getting it over at the moment is that there is no way of constructing a sensible negative income tax system that will not hurt some people. There will be some people who will get less money than they are now getting under it, particularly those in the upper income groups, particularly the affluent who are now being subsidized by the welfare. And they will make it politically difficult for the people to put it into effect. The attempt is to put a negative income tax in effect, which costs less money, is easier to administer, and yet which doesn't pay anybody in the society $1 less than he's now getting. There's no way in which you can construct such a program. But although it's not politically feasible now, the force of history is on its side. It's going to become politically feasible.
Let's not say that give the impression that welfare administrators were against negative income tax, the FAP program, for example, as Moynihan says, because they would lose their jobs, for example. Many of us were opposed to it because of certain features in that program. A $2,400 level for a family of 4. We were opposed to that. And if one goes down the congressional record, those who testified will be shown to be saying, yes, we're for it conceptually, but we're against this piece and this piece. If you change that, you have our support.
I was in the same position. I first proposed the negative income tax 25 years ago. But I testified against the final version of the Nixon plan. Why? Because the welfare bureaucrats had led them to introduce changes in it which converted it from a decent, satisfactory, negative income tax to one which would have been just as bad as what you now have. Would have been added on top of everything else.
It's called reality.
It's political reality, but political reality changes. And that's the important thing. I want to say one more thing about this whole problem that we've been talking about. And that is, going back to Bob Lampman's comment, there is one thing that can be said in favor of the welfare program, unaccustomed as I am to saying anything in favor of it, and that is that it is the only social program I know of which at least, on the average, gives money to people who are in lower income classes than those who pay the taxes. Every other welfare program, not only does a lot of money go to the people who are well off, but on the average, the poor are taxed and the well-to-do are subsidized. We in the upper income classes have been very clever at conning the poor suckers at the bottom to pay us nice salaries as bureaucrats and to provide us with nice benefits at their expense. And at least the welfare program doesn't do that.
And what you state with great confidence that it will come, the negative income tax, even though you recognize the hurdles. Why are you so sure it will come?
Because the present system has within it the seeds of its own destruction. There is no way in which a system constructed like the present, in my opinion, can avoid creating more and more social problems. And something is going to have to be done. Nobody has proposed any alternative. So far as I know, there is no effective alternative to the negative income tax. And so it gets knocked down, and it keeps rising, it gets knocked down, and it keeps rising.
Finally raise the question, though, whether in any modern industrial democracy like this one, it's conceivable the system could be run without a fairly elaborate welfare underpinning of some kind. What do you feel, Ms. Bonham?
I don't think it can be, because I think essentially the set of welfare programs reflect the values of this society. That if it didn't, there would have been revolt long before now. Yes, there are rumblings about its cost, and I think that's primarily a function of rapid rates of inflation eroding real income earning power of the middle-class taxpayer. But I think on one level we wanted to give up the responsibility of caring, the responsibility of day-to-day actual caring. And in a technical, modern, industrial society like we have, the tax system and the government system is probably isn't viable alternative. I don't think we're going to get out of it. I don't think you're going to see private charities who can take my money that I am free to give or not give and essentially make a difference in people's lives of any substance on any level.
I don't think that has anything to do with society being modern, technological, or industrial. It has to do with an ideology, and particularly an ideology that is very strong among academic intellectuals and in the media. And I think that as time goes on and more intelligent ideas replace the kinds of vague visions that dominate today, that the political climate will change, and that's the only thing that stands in the way of reform right now.
James Dudson?
I don't think you're going to get rid of the system, but I'm interested in a welfare system. I'm interested in Tom's last statement about academicians and theorists and so forth. We forget that we're talking about people, and we may sit in the ivory tower and talk about whether this system will work, and either logically or ideologically why it won't work. At the same time, there are masses of people outside who are locked out of the system that you and I are part of. And somehow we've got to make sure that those people are taken care of. And the short of not doing it, of course, means that your safety and my safety and the vitality of this government and of our country is at stake. The mayor of the city of New York asked me when we had a strike, what would I do if I couldn't get checks out to people when our workers were on strike? And I said to him after the first month, chaos. And he said, what do you mean? I said, no man or woman in the city of New York, you included, Mr. Mayor, will be safe if we cannot take care of people who
There we leave this discussion, and hope you'll join us for the next episode of Free to Choose.
Next week, is equality every American's birthright? Is it healthy for a nation when the government tries to impose equality on all its citizens? How does that affect the freedoms of individuals? Don't miss Milton Friedman's Free to Choose next week.